So, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night, whenever you listen to this. This is Machete-wielding alongside Sommerleigh Pollonais, aka Movie Junkie for Life,
Hey guys.
and Julien Neaves, founder of Red Mango Reviews.
Hey everybody.
And this is another episode of Retrospect Reviews.
Can
And
I just quickly mention, I just realized that Red Mango was Red Man Go Reviews.
wow, I now realize that too. I'm not saying that in a sarcastic way.
No, I
Julien,
swear
that is clever. That
I
real,
didn't know.
real
I'm
good.
writing the horror blog and I'm so
Mm.
ashamed to say I thought it was Red Mango.
No, seriously, Julien, that
Mm.
is clever. That is very, very clever, Julian.
Well,
I wish I could shake your hand, but right.
it's a play on the two. It's kind of both. For
Yes,
writing's
yes.
sake, it's Red Mango Reviews, but there's also the play with Red Mango Reviews. I mean,
It's the font, Julian. The font on the site, it's all one size. So
mm.
it's only after, like, wait a minute. I get it now. I get it.
Yeah, I literally just got it too. Wow. Yeah, so as you've probably picked up on, yes, Sommerleigh is a writer for Red Mango Reviews. She focuses primarily on, horror, right? So it's different horror lists and all that kind of stuff. And yes, she's a horror movie connoisseur. She's watched a lot of horrors.
Thank you.
In my case, is like I try to look for the classic ones, the ones that people put high acclaim and whatnot. But she just seeks out the ones that probably miss my radar, or just like, this look kind of cheesy, or some January release or whatever it is. But she devotes her time to just checking out the latest and
I
quote
grew
unquote
up
greatest
on
in
it.
horror.
I grew up on it, and
Mhm.
this horror and cartoons. I mean, that was my childhood. So
Yeah.
movies in general, but horror just for reasons we'll get into later has a very fond place in my heart. So yeah.
Right. Well, in my case, like I got into horror pretty late. I don't want to give the whole story, but like, when I was young, like many kids, I was just like, didn't want to see, like what we're going to talk about here, the Friday 13 movies because it was
Yeah.
scary and monsters and all that kind of stuff, right? But as I got older and I, watched more films and understood, the language of film, if you want to call it that, I kind of see these horrors that I was scared of before. I grew to appreciate them more, and because I like to be emotionally driven when I watch films. I like when horrors could just, scare me or send chills down my spine, but I don't come out of it like, oh my god, I'm not gonna, I'm afraid to watch this, that kind of vibe, unless you seriously get under my skin, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But all that aside, though, in today's episode, we're gonna talk about the film that started it all, kinda, but I'll explain a bit. The movie that launched a mega franchise, and its main character, Jason Voorhees, becoming part
Yes.
of,
Yes.
well, pop culture, right? Of course, we're talking about Friday the 13th, the first one, right? The one that came out in 1980. So, before I get into, well, what we want to do, right, before we jump into the actual film itself, is just kind of run through quickly the other films that were in the series, right? And I guess, well, I haven't seen it. I guess we could include the TV series. I'm barely familiar with it.
Well, the
And
television series doesn't tie into this movie. It just shares the name. So it
oh,
was.
okay.
I will say this: it had some really fun episodes. I adored that series. But it doesn't tie into the movie at all.
Yeah, which I thought was a little weird. I always thought they could have done at least one
Yes,
episode with Jason's mask or something like that.
agreed.
Yeah.
Especially considering that it was built around a cursed antique shop. So yeah, it would have been cool to see the hockey mask show up. I don't know if it ever did. I honestly don't remember it ever showing up. I think it's because they couldn't get the rights. And this is something that goes on with this character as well as Freddy, where there's a lot of fighting back and forth between the studio and the creator. And it's the reason we don't get more of these films. So unfortunately, there's a lot of like Marvel type thing going on there with these horror icons. So
Yeah. And
Oh,
funny
okay.
enough, the Freddy television series, the first episode was based on the franchise. So at least Freddy
yes,
got some love
Yeah.
in his own series.
Right. But just quick question, right? The series, was it like a anthology series, like a Twilight Zone or Outer
It
Limits or something like that?
if
not
you you're familiar
really?
with Warehouse 13, where every episode is like a quote unquote cursed magical
Yes.
item, and they have to
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
track it down. It's kind of
Yes.
like that with more horror in it. So kind of a mix of Warehouse 13 earlier and some X Files kind of thrown in.
Yes, that's the
Yeah,
perfect way to describe it. Julian hit the
yeah.
nail on the head. It's basically like Warehouse 13. If for those who have more they're probably more familiar with that than this. So it was a guy who his uncle died under mysterious circumstances, and he inherits this shop. And unfortunately, a bunch of the items in the shop was sold prior to him getting it. So he ends up discovering that the items are all cursed. Everything in the shop is cursed, and he along with this girl go on a journey to find these items and get them back safely so they could lock them up in this special vault that his uncle had in the shop.
Oh, okay. Interesting,
Yeah.
interesting. Is it worth checking out, by the way, or is it just one of those like, yeah, it
I
was a thing back in the
I don't
days, but
know how it held up, but it had some very memorable episodes. It was a likable cast of characters, and there was some truly scary moments in there. I have very fond memories of this series, but I have no idea. I haven't rewatched it since I was a teenager, so I have no idea how it holds up.
Yeah,
all right.
I do remember one episode that I think there was a video camera that when you use it, it would turn you into a werewolf. It was like some really
What?
crazy stuff going on. Yeah,
For
that
me,
was very out there.
my favorite was the scarecrow. The oh my god, that thing! I have a thing about inanimate doll-like objects coming to life. That
Ah,
scarecrow episode was solid. I think it's like the scariest episode they ever had. That's a really good one.
all right, all right, all right. Okay, so for me, with the franchise, right? Well, like I said, I just want to run through the other films before we jump into the original one here. So because I never grew up on the series itself, I would admit that this franchise doesn't really have a spot in in my memory or my heart or whatnot, right? But I know for you guys, you all being horror connoisseurs and all that, you'll probably have memories, you know what I mean, watching those films or rewatching those films and whatnot, right? So,
Yeah.
Julian, if you don't mind, because I know some of you have quite an interesting history with the series here. Julian, just want to share your history with this original film here and the subsequent movies.
Sure, sure. I think I was introduced to like the sequels. I think I ended up seeing the original later on in life. So I actually thought the series actually started with Jason as the main antagonist. So I think I probably would have started probably watching 3 and 4, and I've always been, when it comes to horror, more of a slasher and monster fan. So I grew up watching it at 8 and 9, and I
Yeah.
never found it scary. I found it fun, seeing this guy in this hockey mask running around killing these people and watching
Yeah.
all the interesting ways. And I was kind of like a kind of a dark kid. I had like a morbid, fascination with, all
A
this murder
kindred
and
spirit.
blood and stuff. Yeah. So yeah, so I love seeing these people hacked up, and always want to find out, well, how are they gonna kill Jason at the end of this one.
Hmm.
So yeah, so
Yes.
I was always more of a Nightmare on Elm Street fan because I was a more fantastical. But yeah,
Yes.
I found Jason was very solid, and then I kind of, as I was older, went back and watched the original. I was like, well, okay, this one is really different from the others. It's more
Yeah.
of like it's a slasher slash murder mystery, and it's Jason's mother who's actually killer, who kind of pops out of nowhere at the end of the movie. So I was like, okay, it's a little different but interesting. But yeah, I with the other series, I kind of prefer the more Jason Unstoppable Killing Force. Let's see how he's gonna wipe out all these people. We get a good protagonist, and yeah, I always found them fun. Nice little popcorn times.
All right,
Yeah.
nice, 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 nice. Summer, what was your history with the Friday 13th franchise?
Well, I know you guys know this already, but like I said, as a kid, I had night terrors. I sleepwalk. I had a lot of issues with anything to do with time to go to bed. And
Ah,
yeah, I always had a lot of very, very scary, very vivid nightmares. And so as a young kid, that it made things really difficult for me to just get along during the day because I wasn't sleeping at night. I think Freddy Krueger would have hated me. Um, but one day I don't know how. I think it was accidental because it's not like my parents would let me watch stuff like this. But I came across Friday the 13th. I'm not sure which episode it was, and I just remember just becoming mesmerized by what I was seeing. And you would think, because of the nightmares and stuff, I would be afraid, but it had an opposite effect in that seeing that it was just a movie and that the killer was always stopped in the end and stuff. Somehow it made me come to terms with the fact that your dreams can't hurt you, that sort of thing.
Right.
And Jason was almost like a hero for me. I can't really describe it. I know it sounds weird to a lot of people, but these movies for me ended up becoming something where I could look at it and I knew it was just a movie, it was just a story. But I always loved that usually it was a girl too, in the end, would conquer these monsters. And I honestly, in watching these films, well, my dad would watch them with me, because he was always very strict about, okay, the nudity and that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And but more than anything, they realized it was helping me, and it did. My nightmares stopped, and I just became a fan ever since after that. And Jason will always hold a fond place in my heart because of
Oh, no, but
that.
that's actually quite fascinating. Like really and truly, though.
Yeah,
Just
it's such
understanding
a
that it's
weird.
fiction. You know what I mean? At the end
Yes,
of the day.
yeah, I think that's what it was. I knew it was just a movie, and somehow in my little brain it was like, well, if this isn't real, then the nightmares aren't real, and this can't hurt you. And somehow it just worked. On a very deep level, subconscious level, it worked. and
Huh,
and I fell in love with horror, and I never looked back.
Movie as therapy.
I
Yes,
know, right?
yes.
Yeah. Well, my history with the franchise is kind of weird though because I'll confess a majority of these films I watched in preparation for this review here for the very first time. But
Okay.
my reason being is just that like I would say like I was aware like when horror films used to advertise on on TV, I mean being shown in theaters and whatnot. I was too young to see those films, of course.
Yeah.
And I there were probably like one or two moments where those movies or older films like say Night You Living Dead will actually show on TV, and if I was up for it, I'd actually check it out. Like I'll never forget like in the 90s where I saw Bram Stoker's Dracula for the first time on local TV. And my mind was blown because I saw all the blood and gore and graphic violence in it. No,
Yes,
they just
yes.
exclude the little bits of nudity in it, but other than that, you saw everything else, and I was like, wow, you know what I mean? So
Yes.
yeah, I could kind of say that film was the one that really got me into watching horror films and really treating them as films and not just oh my god these things are gonna harm me psychologically or spiritually whatever like that, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And then over the years, what I mean, I watched films like The Shining, which still remains my favorite horror film of all time. I'll bring up The Shining in this review here. And then like in the 2000s and stuff, like I started to learn more about horror films, started to get into slashers. So I watched Nightmare on Elm Street, which is still my favorite in the Elm Street series. I actually love Freddy Krueger. I think he's awesome. I'll bring him
Yeah.
up as well too. You know what I mean? And I want to do like a little comparison between him and Jason when we get to, of course, Freddy versus Jason, right?
Right.
But even before then, and I guess is when when I got the internet and when I got cable and stuff like that, I was just always kind of used to the idea of sequels not being as good as the originals. So I always kind of seek out the originals in horror franchises. Now. So that was how I checked out Friday the 13th. I actually saw it like years ago. It's like, all right, this actually not bad, you know what I mean? But then when it came to the others, it's like I don't know. I don't know if these shows could be worth checking out now. But I just took the risk for this episode here, and I was like, you know what, let me just run through them and see what what they're about or if they hold up on that, right? Because
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I know that this franchise has a very loyal and very dedicated fan base, right? So there have to be something in it that will have the fans like defending it and whatnot, right? Defending these movies, I should say. Which leads us now to just a quick run through of the subsequent films, right? So we're gonna get to the original film in a bit, but I just wanna kind of run through the others, right? So quickly, like I saw, like I just so basically how I watch it, right? I checked out the remake first, You talk about
Okay.
the remake afterwards, and I remember. Funny thing is, like when it aired on cable, I watched the first 25 minutes of it, thought it was incredibly awesome, and then for some reason, I just never got back into the rest of the film. Like I don't know, like somebody called me, and I had to move away from the TV because it was cable now, so I couldn't pause or anything like that, right?
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
just missed out everything. But I thought like the first 25 minutes of it were, were incredible, right? But I'll get to that. So right, so part two. Um, I would actually say like the first three movies that includes the original Friday the 13th, I actually
Yeah.
enjoy. Like I actually think those three are solid, right? The early films, I should say, right?
Yeah. And those
I
are
thought that
tied into each other in a way
yes,
that
yes,
the
yes,
rest
which
of
I
the
love.
series isn't. So
Yeah,
yeah.
Yeah, so I'm gonna say it's kind of the first three is like it's I was saying it's its own kind of mini trilogy there, kind of similar to where you have like the Star Trek 2, 3, and 4.
Yes.
It has its
Yeah.
own arc kind of going there,
yeah,
and
yeah, yeah.
interesting way you mentioned the remake. The remake kind of compresses the first three movies into one movie.
Yes,
Uh,
it does.
Yes,
Yes.
it
yeah,
does actually. Yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
surprisingly, what doesn't do a bad job of it. The remake is
No,
actually enjoyable.
I was actually, it's so funny. Well, you know how we were initially when they started this whole remake extravaganza. It's like
With
they're
Texas Chainsaw Massacre, which
with
the
films
original
in, yeah,
I do appreciate and enjoy. Oh, sorry, I should say respect, right? It's not really a show
yeah,
that I enjoy, but it
Who
holds
enjoy
up out there, in
who
my
enjoy
but
the
opinion.
original?
Yeah,
yeah,
but the remake
but
though, no,
nah, the
no, no. It
remake
was
can't touch
just
the original Texas
yeah,
Chainsaw Massacre. But honestly, in general, they kept remaking these films that we were so fond of. And when
yeah.
they said they were gonna remake Friday the 13th, I was like, nah, this is not gonna work. But
Ah,
in
I had a
and
feeling
my
you'll be hesitant
yeah,
of a
my first viewing, I actually didn't really like it. I thought it was just okay. And then I sat down again. I said, you know what? I need to give this movie a fair shake. And I rewatched it. And honestly, it does a good job. It does a really good job of not just honoring Jason, but amping up the level of intensity and the danger that somebody would feel with somebody like Jason. They also corrected a lot of stuff that, the whole he would seem like he would teleport sort of thing when he was chasing you. They
yeah,
had
yeah,
really
yeah.
intelligent explanations for all of that. And I think Derek Mears did a very, very good job of making that character seem genuinely terrifying to come up against.
Mm-hmm. You're right. Well, just talk about the remake for a sec. I actually quite appreciated the second time around. Well, well, actually, see, first time around, right? I can say I only watched the first 25 minutes the first time. I think the first 25 minutes work. And the reason why I keep stressing on that intro, for one thing, it was an intro, right? It blew my mind. After
Yeah.
25 minutes, you actually saw the logo, right? The title actually, and to me, it just played out like, oh, well, this is what I expected from the movie itself, right? But
Yeah.
then it kind of cuts to some years later, and that's when the story begins. One thing I actually appreciate about the show is that they kind of explain one thing that the franchise never bothered to explain. Where was Jason in the daytime? Like, normally he would kind of attack at night and whatnot, but in the
Yeah.
daytime, he's not like walking around in the forest near Camp Crystal Lake or wherever he's at. So I like the fact that he had his own little compound and this little underground
Yeah.
little area that he had prisoners and he was just doing his stuff, sharpening his machete and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I
That
thought that
that's
was
what I'm
really
talking
cool though.
about.
Like they
It
add a
also
little
explains
background to him now.
Yeah, it also explains how it was really intelligent. I think they made a genuinely good effort of explaining the myth behind the legend because he had bells set up that
Yes,
if
yes.
people ran and he would hear and he would know where these people are. So it instead of him being quote unquote teleporting from one place to the next, we knew this is how he knew it had people on the grounds, and this is how he moved from one place to the another without being detected. He'd run through the tunnels. So
Yeah.
yeah, they were
Yeah,
really
I
smart
dug
about
that.
it. Yeah,
Mm. Even though yes, it have one-dimensional characters and whatnot, and it was just glorious to see them die and whatnot. Even though I found the end was just like, okay, we just kind of had to end it that way because it's a Friday 13 movie, but
yeah,
it didn't
yeah.
feel earned to me. Just like
It
y'all
didn't. It
just really
didn't.
didn't come up with no ideas here. And it's kind of funny seeing both Jared Padalecki and Daniel Panabaker, big CW stars in this
Yeah.
movie. They're like, what? Okay, like before they get all the CW money, okay, or I should say, before Daniel got to CW money, 'cause I know Jared was on, that
Uh,
Supernatural, which does
Supernatural.
want to end.
Yeah. Yeah. I was
Oh,
also,
Lord.
they had they had at least one surprising kill in that I didn't see coming with Daniel Panabaker. Um,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
I did
I
not
wanted her to
expect that
live, boy. I
at that
wanted her to
point in the
survive, and it's
film. I
like,
didn't
nope.
expect it, and I thought that was smart. It kept us on our toes.
Because
Yeah, I was
she was
rooting for her
supposed to be
to
the
survive
final
though, but
girl. It's like, how do
Yes,
you kill the
yes,
final girl, you know?
yes,
exactly.
yes, yes, exactly. And last thing last, how he got the mask though was quite interesting. I like that.
Yeah,
I like that. Right. So like going back to part two, right? So I dug part two. Um, what was interesting here is that like with the group of campers, right, that introduced in the movie, probably like half of them like got killed though, but like everybody else got spared. But then again, the other half you didn't really see much of. You just probably see them, playing games or just hanging out in the night. But other than that, it wasn't like a full group of people came to the camp and all except for one person died. It was just like half the. It's like, all right, cool, cool, cool. The little burlap sack that Jason had was quite
Oh my
interesting with
lord.
the ice slut. Like I thought, like, oh, this is very proto Jason. Like, okay, okay, okay.
it
But
makes collecting the action figures very cool. Okay, you get a different looking Jason each time.
yeah, but I was
Fucking
kind of wondering,
world.
like in my head, I was trying to think of, okay, what did people find this really scary though? Like a guy with a sack over his head, with a little hole in his eye. Like if people really got freaked out by it,
Yeah,
I was
and
wondering. You know what
physically too, he's not that intimidating. He's not that big and scary as we know him to be. That
I
kind
mean?
of
He just
thing.
looked like a normal dude. You know what I mean? That's the build
Yeah.
of him. Yeah. I do. I will agree though. The reveal of his face, that was worth it.
Mm.
That was definitely worth it. I like that. Even though it's kind of like a repeat of the end of the first movie, but I give it points because everybody want to know, okay, who's this guy? Is Oh my God, it's Jason, but why is his face looking scarred? You know what I mean? He has a
Yeah.
kind of Harvey Two Face thing going on, and all
Yeah.
through the series, they just kind of work on it so it looked like his face was totally scarred instead of half of it. It was kind of weird.
Yeah.
I, I, I,
I
I
think he's supposed to be some kind of mongoloid looking, inbred looking type of
yeah,
personality.
I think his mother slept with her brother or something.
I think
He
so.
looked inbred.
I get that
Yeah.
But the
vibe
movies
too. That
never
yeah.
explain that though. They never
No, it
explain it.
doesn't.
No, they
Yeah,
don't. But honestly, like that's the cool thing. You can fill in the blanks yourself, and you just get that vibe off of. I mean, his mom was wacko to begin with, so
yeah,
yeah,
yeah. And to be honest, there was something kind of creepy and kind of cool actually with the shrine that he had for his mom. The mom's severed head in the middle of the shrine. Like there's
yeah,
something
yeah,
about that image. Like honestly, like I will never forget that. That was just like burnt into my memory. And this is coming from somebody who actually saw the sequel that particular sequel years ago, and I just forgot half of what went on. So yeah, I think that part two is decent, and same thing as I could see for part three. But I was kind of making jokes of making fun of it at times because like, all right, just because it's part three, mean they have to be in 3D, like bruh, like really? Cause yeah, they
everybody. No,
literally
but I think
capitalize on the
everybody
whole
was
3D
doing the
craze.
3D thing at that point in time. You had Jaws 3D. It was a gimmick that had kind of like taken off, and
Yeah,
everybody was trying to stick it into their movies, whether it fit or not. So
yeah,
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 we,
yeah.
we got the weird 3D stuff in that.
And to the show's credit, right? They at least come up with some creative ways to capitalize on the 3D. Like they'll have a part where some like famous scene, when the guys was playing with a yo-yo. I
Yes.
literally see the yo-yo like just going into the camera back and forth. It's like, oh, okay, that's cool, that's cool. I think that, yeah. Even,
Whoa.
even one cool part though was like, it was an arrow, I think it was, that
I think
literally went towards the camera. What was
yeah,
it? Yeah,
that was a really good one. Yeah. And then
yeah,
the
yeah.
arrow for the eye, I think it was after you get to see
The spear gun.
the
The
spear
spear gun.
gun.
That's
Yes,
it.
the
Spear
spear
gun.
gun.
That's right. Right. Right.
Yes.
Yeah, and you got to see where he got his first, I should say, hockey mask. So like, all right, cool, cool. And it's
Yep.
from this the clown, because these films usually have a clown, right? By the name of Shelley,
Oh
R.I.P.
God,
Shelley.
he's so annoying. He's so
Boy,
annoying.
Oh yeah.
trying so desperately to get a laugh, boy. You know what I mean? Which is like a trope of these series, right? But like when he died, I kind of felt sorry for him. She was like, dog, like why do you? Know what I mean? Yeah. One last thing I just want to mention too, the theme song for this, boy. Oh my god! When I heard the theme song for this, I just imagine, okay, back in the 82, like kids were like popping and locking and doing the caterpillar, the robot to this trend. So, because it just have this kind of retro, funky hip hop kind of vibe to the song, though. I think it's
That's
dope in my opinion. I think it's a real dope song, but it just doesn't fit with the horror vibe
But here's
of the
the thing
movie.
with this series, you see a lot of that. You see where whatever is going on at the time in the zeitgeist, they would try to kind of force fit it into the movies in some way, shape, or form, and it didn't matter if it really worked or not. Sometimes it did, sometimes it didn't,
Yeah,
but they would just push it in there. It's like the bikers, the leather clad punk guys. What the hell were they doing in a place like Crystal Lake? But
I know, right? They
here
just
they
came out of
are,
nowhere.
Just,
here they
r-
are.
r- just randos to get killed, pretty much.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes,
yeah. Speaking of that, right? The black guy, the black tug guy, right?
yeah,
There's a moment where I swear he's being hacked up, Jed. And then any man show up, just to hit Jason one blow, and then he get lashed, and then that's it. That's
yep,
that's
yep.
that's all he wrote. Like
And
what? You
and the
seriously
thing
dead?
is, what was he doing for the whole movie? He's just lying down there. When Jason comes, I'm gonna take him out.
But
When
I
he
I
comes,
I
Julian,
I think
Julian
I
makes
first
a
time
think
really
that
now.
good point. Julian made a good point that for a horror film, that is, as I mean, it's where most of the tropes came from. They had a lot of respect for black people because there were a lot of black actors that made it a lot further through than their white counterparts in
that's
these
true. That is
movies
true. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so
You're
the
right.
whole black guy dying early, that's is not really a trope of this
of
franchise.
this series. No, it
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
isn't. Yeah.
But just about that guy quickly, I think they just did that to shock the audience. Like, oh my god, you know what I mean? So the survivor, or at least the survivor of this show, has a chance because the person we thought was dead isn't dead. You know what I mean? But it was
Yeah,
just kind of
yeah.
weird when you look at it now, right? So cut to 2 years later, we get, oh my gosh, the final chapter. Lie. It's not a final chapter, god damn it.
Ah,
And this was a thing that I kind of let slide with the first two sequels, but then it just got annoying with this one. The flashbacks, boy. Just
yeah.
better just say previously on Friday the 13th. It was just okay. We got to see what happened in one, then we got to see in two, in three. Although I do
That's a
like the fact that
lot.
you had I think it was from the second one, part two. The guy who was doing the story, telling the story of Jason and his mom and all
Yeah.
that kind of stuff, and they just kept cutting back the moments in the series, right? Oh, by the way, in the second film, it was kind of interesting that well, Alice, right, the one who survives in the first film, she got killed, right, in the beginning.
Yeah, yeah.
Like
In the weirdest way
consistency,
possible
though. Okay,
too, if you give it too much thought about how did Jason get in her house, have time to plant ahead,
I know,
do
right?
all this kind of
Oh,
stuff. It doesn't make sense, but how did he even find where
How
she
did he
was
find
living
her?
and
I
Did
don't
he
even
read the
know.
papers and then he read a phone book and then he tracked her down?
did
Is
he call
Jason
an
that
Uber?
competent?
It's like it's so
It's not like
weird.
she was
But
living that close to Crystal Lake, right?
no, none of them were. This is what the whole thing about camp is. It's like you're traveling hundreds of miles away from where you live, and back then didn't have Google and crap. So how the hell did he find her? But
I have no clue.
it is what it is. It is what it
Yeah,
is. And it's just kind of like, okay, at least they tried to find some continuity between the two. So
Hmm.
yeah.
yeah. So I'll give them credit for that, right? But
And
for me,
oh,
go
I
on. Sorry.
just want to say something before we leave two. Two, as you mentioned, two actually has one of the lowest kill counts of the entire franchise. Where actually Jason doesn't kill that many people, and
Right.
Right.
also one of the best protagonists in Ginny, who actually was a child psychologist who ended up using her child psychology to defeat Jason. So it's actually two is actually one of the stronger entries, and for three,
Right.
I would say three has some of the better kills and introducing mass, but that's about it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I actually like what the lead did in the second one, talking in place of the mod of Jesus' mom. even though she didn't really know everything about
Yeah.
his backstory except for the little campfire story that the guy did, right? But that was cool.
And
Yeah, but
sadly, the actress had no idea they were gonna kill her. She, she was just excited to be back, and she was ready to go, and that's it. They just kill her off. I mean,
ah, she probably thought that she was gonna be like a Jamie Lee Curtis, be
probably,
for Halloween.
yeah,
Yeah.
probably.
And as we brought up Halloween, just a little segue here. Yes, you could tell this movie was clearly inspired by Halloween, right? The success of that iconic film from John Carpenter and whatnot.
Yeah.
And it's funny. Just quick story. There was a point in time, I can't remember when, but they actually had a screening of it at the UE Film building, right? Well,
Oh,
film
cool.
program building, and one of Carpenter's friends was there to kind of tell us what was going on. I remember asking him, "Is there the chance that Carpenter will ever make a sequel or another film?" And he's like, "Well, Carpenter is just that type of person who just be like, you know what? If I'm not interested, I'm not gonna do it." And then, to my surprise, like about a few years later, we got the Halloween sequel. You know what I mean? That came out a couple of years ago. I was
Right,
like, "What?
right.
Okay."
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, that was awesome, though, you know what I mean? And I'm definitely looking forward for to Halloween Kills. So I hope that we don't get it as a VOD release. Well, I don't
Yeah.
know. Yeah, really excited for that. Anywho, so final chapter. This was to me where the franchise had a fall off. For one thing, I didn't care for any of the victims at all. I felt that they were obnoxious and just I just didn't care about any of them, right? What else? Corey Feldman's in this as well too, and they had
Yes.
this thing in the end where he started to stab up GC. He's like, die, die, die. You know what I mean?
Here's
And
the thing,
while
though.
that came off as something real scary, in
I
retrospect, it's like,
actually liked four
really,
because of the fact that the way it ended. I like the idea because initially, what they had planned was that Jason would die. It was supposed to be the final chapter, and
right,
then somebody else, because you have this character. I think his name is Tommy Tommy
Tommy
Jarvis.
Jarvis. Tommy Jarvis.
Yes, you have this character now who is so scarred by what happens that he becomes the next quote unquote Jason Voorhees. And I
right.
thought that was fantastic because I kind of always had my thing with Michael is that Michael is just a man. Michael should not be able to survive the things that happen to him.
I know, right?
And
Mm.
so the fact that they were brave enough to say, okay, we're gonna kill Jason Voorhees off because he is just a man. I was all for that. I liked where they were going with that. But it is studio interference, and then the rest is history.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. And I think the reason why I didn't like it so much is because it's not in a camp anymore. It's at a house. It's opposite to where Tommy was. So these kids, these high school kids were just renting on the place for a weekend or whatever it was. And it was just Jason going in and killing them from inside and outside the house. So it just didn't have the thrill sitting there because everything was just
yeah. But
contained in
he,
one
he
place
was
now.
trying to get back home, so he was kind of on his way.
Okay, okay,
He
okay.
he just stop off to get
he
something to
just
eat and
he
somebody
just
to
stopped to
kill.
yeah, he just stopped to burn a few calories.
Right. And then afterwards we had the fifth film, A New Beginning.
Mm.
Garbage.
Oh,
That's all I have to say.
Oh
I
my god.
not
before we
like
move
this
on to
film
the
at
fifth one.
all.
Oh,
It's a
I just want to
it's a
mention on the
lie.
sorry, I just want to mention on the fourth. That was
Yeah.
actually Tom Savini's last Friday the 13th film.
Yes.
And that's why he
The,
got some pretty cool practical effects. And he was
the
like,
great
well,
Tom Savini. And I
yeah,
Yes,
believe
that's the
the
great.
blood and the gore is definitely amped up by the fourth one. It's
yeah,
Yes, 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 yes.
so
There's
yeah.
even a moment where Tommy was reading Fangoria magazine and they had like Tom Savini's name in it, I believe it was.
Yeah, I mean, all those
yeah.
masks you see that he built, that's Tom. That's the
Yeah,
great
yeah.
Tom Savini.
Mm.
Yeah. But yeah, boy, with a new beginning, did not like this, didn't care for it at all. Did not care for the victims, didn't care for the story. It
Yeah.
tried way too hard to be edgy, dude. I mean, and just it's kind of ironic that from the second one, that's where they really started to amp up on the sexual content and the nudity, which
Yeah,
become
yeah,
like so commonplace with the movies now. But I felt with
yeah,
the fifth one, they was just trying way too hard,
yeah,
and it was just violence for the sake of violence, right? And it's just this kind of weird line that some directors could get away with and others can't. Case in point, Rob Zombie's Halloween and Halloween 2 films. Like the first Halloween was that right balance between grimy exploitation, grindhouseness with the slasher stuff that we know from the old films, right? And then
Correct.
Halloween 2 went on a whole other direction, and it was just Michael Myers just killing people, and there was no joy to it. It was
Yeah,
just
there, yeah.
somebody's getting
You
killed
don't.
just because, and that's why I felt with a new beginning. The characters were just getting killed because, and well, the last thing, and I think this was like a huge blow to the fans of the franchise. No Jason. It was just a copycat killer, and then in the end, they was hinting, oh well, it's Tommy, but it's actually not Tommy. And then out
Yeah,
of the blue, Tommy just decided, you know what, I just gotta kill this person, put on the mask and run away. Ta-da, the end.
yeah.
Lame.
Yeah.
It took
Well, yeah. What, Summer? You go ahead.
No, it's such a. It was such a slap in the face. It is the worst in the franchise, and I'm including.
I would disagree, but go on, go on.
No, I don't. I think I know which one you would pick, but for me, it's just the fact that. Now, here's the thing. There's some stuff I like. I do like the idea of bringing back an older Tommy Jarvis. I love to see the idea of, okay, this is somebody who lived through something so traumatic that they're completely messed up about it.
Yeah.
And he has these bouts of violence, and you really wonder, maybe he is the one killing everybody. Um, but the person, when they finally give you the reveal, his reason for what he was doing, while it might seem like, okay, that's your son, but they said that he abandoned this kid like since he was a baby. So I don't get why you would suddenly go insane and decide you were gonna punish all these kids and kill all these kids for your son that you don't even acknowledge.
Yeah,
It
you're
was
right.
just, yeah, it was that for me. I just remember the feeling of realizing it wasn't Jason and feeling like I had gotten it that whole it was all a dream type of stupidness that they do.
Right, right.
I think too, if I'm not mistaken, this is part five has like the lowest rating among fans. Like, most of them average out, these movies average out at about 6.5. I think this has like a 4 among
Wow.
fans.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah,
not
yeah,
surprising though.
yeah. Honestly, I feel like it's the worst. It's the worst. I'm just a huge fan of Jason, and it was a slap in the face to say, "Oh, by the way, I just made you sit through an hour and a half, and this is not a Jason movie. This is just another slasher film. This could be anything. You could
That's
pull
the
this
thing.
out,
Yeah.
and it could be anything.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, new beginning. Wow. Yeah, as someone was saying, the whole reveal with, well, it was the guy, well, he was an EMT or something because of his son. Yeah, it was completely unsatisfying.
Yeah.
Um, and the thing is, this, I think this has actually one of the highest kill counts where every random character who was in the movie, he went and killed, like
Yeah.
a guy who dropped off something. Who dropped off the children. He went and killed him and his girlfriend, and then the
Yes.
black boy's
Yeah, for
brother
no
and his
reason.
girlfriend. It was
Yeah.
just like he was just on the most random of random killing sprees. I was just like, you're just padding up the kill time because you all don't have much of a movie here. When you should have been spending more time with scarred Tommy Jarvis, who was
Yes.
interesting enough character, or even the
He
little black
was.
boy
He
who I
was.
thought was fun.
Yeah,
But
he
y'all,
was.
they
His
just so kill,
story
more
arc
kill, more
was
kill, more kill.
fun.
You
Yeah.
know? So I think if the reveal was probably a better reveal, as you actually tricked us with the character. I was a character people actually knew or cared about. You'd be like, oh, it's that one. But yeah,
Yeah.
that did not work. And the whole setup, as the thing is, as they were going to set up, well, Tommy's going to become the new killer. But when he move into six, we'll see. Yeah, that did not happen.
Yeah, that did not happen. That did not happen at all. All right. So just a little segue again. I know we always doing segues, right? But I really want to touch on this too because, well, these are the only reviews basically you could get from, the late great Roger Ebert and the late great Gene Siskel, right? So
Yeah.
they pretty much criticize all five movies, right? Well, mainly first, second, the fourth, and the fifth one, right? And let's want to touch on this just briefly, right? So back in the 80s, late 70s, early 80s, of course, there was just this huge influx of slasher films, right? All these knockoffs and all that kind of stuff, right? Each
Mhm.
one trying to top itself, trying to be more graphic or disturbing and whatnot. Even though you could tell, even though like a majority of them were made, by the cheap now, you know what I mean? So it's just a matter of what we could pull off, right? So at a point in time, me and Siskel and Ebert were just fed up of these films, right? So at their movie review show at the movies, they would criticize stuff like this, right? So I believe for the first movie, they spent the whole episode pretty much just berating that film, sorry, and these slasher films now. But then with the other ones, it was just like, okay, well, the first one kind of came and went, but why are we having this again? And how they looked at it was just like, there's some sort of joy to be found showing how teens in particular, get killed.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? How many times would you see a spear go through someone's chest? So, you know what I mean? Why is there always emphasis on, the female anatomy and all that kind of stuff, right? Um, and, like, I understand as adults, you know what I mean? Because, yeah, I mean, kids would have sneaked in, teens would have snuck in, even though they were rated R films, watch those films, laugh or scream and go, yeah, when somebody gets killed, because
Yeah.
that's kind of the thrill of the series, of this franchise. Hate it or love it, right? But for me, I kind of understand, I kind of sided with them at times, especially when I watched, the final chapter and a new beginning. I was understanding, like, yeah, like, there's no fun to be had here, and whatever fun there was, you know what I mean, just kind of got played out at this point, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
But still, before we get to you guys' views on this, I can't know, because of where I'm at and because of why I know it movies, come and say, yes, these guys are right and slash films are evil, and they promote all this bad stuff and whatnot. They're entertainment, right? But at a point in time, you kind of have to be like, all right, yes, people are getting killed, but is there like a real point to it? Am I really being entertained by this, right? So I guess this is something that will be discussed for years, especially with the genre of horror, right? If we could look at these things as entertainment, or well, it's just showing people that violence is good and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, it was really kind of interesting how they kind of picked on that franchise because of the violence in it. But really and
Yeah.
truly, it's because of how repetitive it was at the time, you know what I mean? And that's something we can't really shake. Uh, Summer, you have any thoughts on, just the criticism of the Friday films?
It's kind of like what you say. On one hand, I get what they're saying, and I totally love the fact that I think it was Siskel was standing up for women's rights all the way back then.
Yeah.
But looking at it through the eyes of a horror lover, I always say that most horror, not all of it, but a lot of horror is a lot more intelligent than people give them credit for. And I think on one hand, it's kind of like video games. It's you watch horror movies for many different reasons, depending on what the movie is and who you are. But with these movies, it's a safe level of escapism. It's a place where you can sit and watch this scary thing happen to somebody else. And sometimes, it's kind of like Saw with how crazy the kills were getting after a
Hmm.
while. If you were wondering, okay, what is the real lesson behind all of this? With these movies, yeah, I agree. The longer it went, the more it just became about the kills and not the characters. But at the same time, there was fun to be had in that. There was fun to be had in, oh my God, how did they do that? How did they make that look so real? Like a spear going through two people, or
Yeah,
the
agreed.
the iconic arrow through Kevin Bacon's neck.
Which
These
you're gonna
things
get to. Hmm.
yeah, these things were it was just sitting there and just being fascinated about how how are they doing this. And then the fun in it was really like, they're so dumb. I wouldn't do this. I wouldn't go off on my own. And why do you walk 10 miles away to pee when your friends are standing there?
I
It's
know,
like
right?
nobody does that. It's just there's a the more you watch it, especially when it comes to slasher films, most slasher films for me, there isn't much of a lesson. I think initially it was the whole thing of, okay, if you live a certain lifestyle, if you have sex out of marriage, if you do drugs, these are the characters that were getting knocked off.
Yeah, yeah.
And so you get what, the hidden message in its kind of thing. But for the most part, it's just empty entertainment in a lot of these slasher films. And even as a fan of horror, I can identify that. And I can't be fair and say, well, yeah, that's just kills for kill's sake.
Right, right. Totally understand. Julian, you anything you want to weigh in on, the criticism of, the Friday 13 franchise?
Yeah, and as you're saying, I mean, it's valid, and as someone made a good point, your enjoyment of these films will depend on who you are and what you're watching these films for. I
Yeah.
mean, if you're going to watch these films for some type of high art or some deeper meaning, you are going to be sorely disappointed. There is nothing there. They're not trying to teach you anything. And even the point where someone's making about the whole hidden morality thing, that doesn't apply to Friday the 13th because he just
No.
killed everybody. He don't care if you have sex, if you're a virgin, if you're in a wheelchair. He
I know,
don't
right?
care if you're
Yeah,
some
that
if
that
you're a
killing
little old
part.
man or even in a new beginning. The black boy, little old man grandfather, he get killed too. What did he
Yeah.
ever
Yeah,
do?
Yeah.
he do
Hey,
not.
hey, that just goes to show you how evolved Jason is. He's an equal opportunity killer. Jason
He,
doesn't see race or
He
sex.
kills everybody
or
that's like
disability.
like like within a mile radius. If you're there, he kills you. That's what A New Beginning was about.
So Jason can't even say, well, okay, I killing teens because a teen killed my mother. He just a killing machine. He don't really care. He just kill
Yeah.
everybody.
Yeah.
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 So don't expect any higher. Don't expect any deeper meaning. Don't dig into these movies. But I agree with Summer where I kind of enjoy the kind of the art of, well, how they did it. You know how they
Yes.
made this, how they cut off this guy's head, or sometimes the ridiculousness of it, like in part three, where Jason squeezes the guy head and you have a fake eye pop out and it looks so fake.
I
And
Yeah.
know, right?
it's like, seriously, you seriously did that because that looks stupid. But yeah, it's just really, it's like junk food entertainment. You sit and you enjoy it and you have a
That
good time, a good
that's a
laugh.
perfect description,
Yeah,
Julian. Junk food entertainment. I
yeah,
like that.
yeah, and
Yeah,
you have a good.
yeah,
I
you're
mean,
right.
you're not gonna watch these movies every night, but if you're in the mood, you say, "Hey, let's throw on a Friday 13th. Let's laugh at these ridiculous characters, ridiculous kills, and
Yep.
then let's see how they know the survivor, how they're gonna take him down at the end, and you have fun, and then you move on with your life, and there's nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong
Yep.
with a little fun thrill ride. So while
Yeah,
I could
yeah.
understand their criticism, and I mean, yeah, I mean the movies are quite, they could be quite misogynistic and gore for sake and kind of stupid, but that's kind of part of the charm as well too. So I mean,
Mm,
yeah,
and
so
and to give them a bit of credit, slasher films in general. What Julian said about them being misogynistic, which is truth, especially during the 60s and 70s, you would see. I've seen a lot of slasher films that were 10 times worse than this, and it was just brutal towards women for no reason whatsoever.
mm.
And yet, you have the final girl trope. You have that saving grace of 9 times out of 10, the guy has to be saved by the girl in
Yeah,
these movies, where action heroes were always male, horror females were 99% of the time it was gonna be a female. She was gonna find her strength in the end and she was gonna fight back. So that's one good thing I would say that came out of this for sure.
right, right. So next we had, well, in my opinion, one of the best. I would say, yeah. Well,
Your favorite.
yes, the
Your
best.
favorite.
Yes, top favorite. I don't want to say best really, but yeah, top favorite Friday 13 movie, Jason Lives. Boy, this was a ultimate guilty pleasure for me. Reason being is because it was self-aware, it was funny, like darkly funny. The kills were just incredible and inventive, and just had a quick pace to everything, right? So I like the fact that, well, I guess is the people that were running the franchise or just the director, writer involved, they decide, hey, let's not take this franchise so seriously, right? Let's have fun. Let's kind of give people what it is they want, right? Idiots being killed and whatnot, and Jason just being a badass, right? And what's cool about this movie too is that you got to see Jason move around in daytime though. Like this is the same way he hunted out these paintballers, well, these guys playing paintball. It's like that was real cool though, you know what I mean?
This
The
was
way how
definitely more goofy. It didn't
yeah,
take itself as seriously.
the way how he was revived alone. That just tell me, okay, this is the type of movie that it is, right?
Yeah.
It's dumb, it's silly, but it kind of knows what it is, and it kind of knows and doesn't know at the same time. Yeah. So for me, yeah, this is easily my top favorite as far as the franchise goes. You guys love, Jason Lives, or just like, whatever. Or I should say, is it just like, like the Roger Moore, James Bond films where, you have a really good one and you have a kind of goofy, silly one, right? And it's kind of funny that they do a kind of James Bond, reference there. Which I was like,
I
okay, I see what y'all did there.
okay. I don't like the goofy nature of this because it's making it was a little too comical for what I get from these films.
Right.
Like the when he smashes the guy face into a tree and it leaves a smiley face behind. It was just a little.
I
It
love
was
that.
too silly. It was and the credit card when the girl tries to bribe Jason with money.
Yes.
Um, and it was just kind of too stupid in that respect. But I did like the fact that this is where we got zombie Jason from. This is
Yeah.
where we got an explanation for why this is going to become an unstoppable killer. So I don't need to apply logic anymore to anything when it comes to how come he keeps coming back. So
That's right.
yeah,
Exactly.
I give it props for that. Jarvis Tommy here just went from being a character that I thought was complex and cool to being a dumbass who
You know,
revived
we
Jason
need to stop
Voorhees.
Jason. We
So
need to stop Jason. We need to stop Jason. What are you
right?
guys doing?
Tommy's stupid. Tommy's stupid.
Yeah. I mean, really, really, you would dig him up. It's I don't know. I didn't like that, but at the same time, I agree with you. The way he's revived, it's hilarious, and I don't know. The like I said, Zombie Jason works for me, so they get points for that.
Right. Julian, thoughts on Jason Lives?
Yeah, I agree with you. Actually, Jason Lives is my favorite of the entire franchise. Stupid Tommy, notwithstanding. One, I think it's the best Jason costume we have.
Yeah.
Well, actually,
Yeah.
no. Actually, no, that's seven.
Oh,
I'll wait.
oh, okay, okay. My bad.
Okay,
I
okay.
do like the effects with the maggots and stuff, but this is like my second favorite. But I
Right.
do like it with I love the kills in it. When he was there approaching about to kill the children, that was the first time I actually was scared for a victim in any of these movies. I wasn't scared about nobody. I
That
was
was
like,
a genuinely scary
yeah.
moment, huh?
I was like,
Swear to
oh
God.
my god, Jason is going to murder all of these children. Oh my god, are they gonna
Yeah.
really do that? That was actually pretty terrifying.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, yeah, it's very self-aware. You even have the gravedigger guy who actually watches the screen and say, It's crazy what some people think of as entertainment." Wink, wink. So
Yeah.
yes, it's
I
it's
love that.
very self-aware. But as you were mentioning how he was revived, there's actually a possible continuity error because in New Beginning, the cop tells somebody that Jason was cremated. But and
Yeah.
here we have him buried with a big gravestone. It's like, you
Yeah,
know,
like
did,
why though?
did,
Like
did,
why?
did we
Like, yeah,
forget he
who
was
would do
cremated?
that? Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know?
Who would do that? Granted,
Yeah,
the people of Crystal Lake always seem to be aware of his existence, and it's almost like he was their personal protector from the outside world, so to speak. So these kids would come in, and if like we had that one where the one crazy old guy was trying to warn them, and he's killed. And
Yeah.
yet you find that Jason never really interferes with the townsfolk. I even think I remember there's one movie where one of the townspeople acknowledges that he doesn't mess with us, we don't mess with him.
Right.
So who knows? Maybe they buried him and they just told everybody they burnt him. I don't know.
Perhaps, perhaps. Yeah.
yeah.
All right. So here's where things gonna get kind of controversial now. So let's want to run through part 7 and part 8. So part 7 in New Blood, I kind of hate this show. So for one thing, right, quickly, right, moving quick. In the previous film, they changed Crystal Lake to Forest Hills because we don't want the history of Camp Blood, right? And then they just change it back to Crystal Lake because reasons, right? And you have this protagonist Tina, right, who have psychokinetic powers and all that kind of stuff, right? And she want to use that to revive her dead father. And then Jason, who was more or less tied with a chain at the bottom of Crystal Lake, sorry, is shows back up and then starts killing people. And then for some reason, she was seeing through his eyes, and it was after he killed people. And it had this weird tendency of like every time Jason kills somebody, it will just cut like instantly. Like you will never see, the blood spray or whatever it is. Like somebody will get hit, and then it would just cut like instantly. I'm like, why though? And the ending, she resurrects her father to kill Jason. No, no. New Blood is terrible. But here's where things gotta get even more controversial, right?
Dun
Then we have
dun.
the sequel that everybody hates, right? Jason Takes Manhattan, which was not appropriate title at all because only like the last third of the movie that he actually go to Manhattan.
Quote unquote.
But here's the thing, huh? It is not, to me, not one of the worst shows I've seen in my life. It is terrible. It is very, very terrible, but it's not like a movie that was ripping out my hair. I was like, nah, this is like the worst thing I've ever seen in my life. I've seen worse movies than this show. I've seen worse, right? And I do like, even though I talk about the contained, set of, um, the final chapter,
Mm-hmm.
but the whole thing about them on a boat, sorry, on a ship, and it's stormy seas and all that, I thought it was kind of interesting though, at a point. But then I was like, okay, you're Jason, you're on a ship, it's stormy outside. Why are you still moving around killing people though? Like I know in your head is you're not thinking about your own survival, but I mean everybody else is still there just getting wiped out. There's only later it's like, oh shit, we need to get out. we need to get into lifeboats and all that kind of stuff, Trent.
Yeah.
But at least I could give them credit. They wanted to do something different. At least they wanted to try something out. Even right down to Jason being in Manhattan, which they didn't really play out the way it did. One main reason a lot of people cite is just how you seen this guy in a hockey mask running around and everybody's just like, oh, okay, he's just one of the weirdos in New York, so whatever. But yeah, it just didn't capitalize on what I felt was just two ideas just smashed into one, and there was just no cohesion between the two of them. So not the worst thing I've ever seen in my life, but yeah, as far as Friday City movies, yeah, it was weak, right? But still, I don't know about you guys, but New Blood was awful. So tell me how wrong I am.
Okay. So, New Blood is my favorite. Right? Or I should say it is definitely my top second after the first movie. So here's why. Towards Kane Hodder. Kane Hodder
Yes,
is
yes, he was
introduced
great.
as Jason, and Kane
Mhm.
Hodder is to Jason as Robert Downey Jr. is to Iron Man. Okay,
All
so
right, I got you. I got you.
he the way he moved, he would do this kind of thing where he would like sigh or gag, or his whole shoulders would be. He brought a life to Jason that wasn't there before, where you could feel the anger, you could feel the rage coming off of this character, and I absolutely loved it. He has the best look of all the Jasons out there. Is this one with the chain hanging around the neck, and you could see the rot under the flesh and the clothes. I just loved how he looked. He definitely looked like a apex predator zombie type killer. And the third one is because as a kid, now, like I said, as much as I love Jason, you would always have that thing of how would you take down somebody who was unstoppable? And Tina for me was awesome because Tina was almost like an X-Man where she didn't have to get close to him to fight him. And I know it's ridiculous. I honestly agree that it is ridiculous, the whole psychokinetic power thing and her reviving her dad in the end. It's so silly. But I like the idea that if I had to fight Jason, I didn't have to get within 6 feet of him. Like I could stand half a yard away and use my powers and electrocute him and strangle him and all that sort of thing. So I don't know.
Right, I understand.
I really got a kick out of that. I thought the characters here, they're some of the more memorable characters of the series, even the unlikable ones like the blonde girl who was picking on Tina.
Oh yeah, I
They had,
hated it.
yeah, she was so fun to hate. So there's a lot about this now. I know it's not a lot of people's favorites and a lot of people rate it as being dumb, but I enjoyed it. I absolutely enjoyed it growing up. As for Jason Takes Manhattan, there's some fun kills in this movie. And the only moment that really stood out to me was, like you said, when he kicked down the boombox and the kids threaten him. They see his face, they run
Yeah.
off. The rest of this, the characters are not at all memorable or likable. And with the exception of one guy, the black guy,
Yeah, yeah. Who
this
I
movie,
actually kind of felt sorry for, even though I was
yeah.
laughing at his final moment. That's all I'll
When
say. It
when
was kind
I
of funny.
marathon, yeah, when I marathon this series, this is honestly the hardest one to get through, and that includes the fake Jason one. So yeah,
Right, right,
this one for me is like a definitely like a four out of 10 sort of thing for me.
right, right, right. Julian, quickly your thoughts on New Blood and Jason Takes Manhattan.
Yeah, New Blood. New Blood is fun. I love the Jason design. What you're seeing, his spying in the
Yeah.
back, and all the
Yes,
stuff.
yes.
Um, Tina is kind of annoying, a little screamy, but I love her powers. And yeah, it's a little ridiculous all the stuff that happens, but yeah, I like I jokingly call it Carrie versus Jason. So I like the final showdown in it. So there's a lot of stuff to like, but it's not my favorite of the series. So that's
Right.
part.
Yeah.
Oh my part eight is so bad. It's really bad. The final girl, she's so flat. Um,
Yes.
and because of her delusion, she ends up accidentally killing her teacher, the one redeemable character in the whole thing.
Yeah.
I, I think
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
memorable
yeah,
for just
yeah.
yeah, it's memorable for just two reasons: the uppercut kill of the black guy, and as
Yes.
Summer said, the scare with the punks. But yeah, this movie is just a long, random slog of him killing people. And oh my, I think that's the worst Jason takedown in the entire series, where the is what toxic waste
Yeah,
washes
toxic
down,
Yeah,
and then
waste.
he turns
yeah,
back into a baby. That makes no sense.
No,
yes.
It's
it was through
yeah.
her eyes. It was a delusion. 'Cause remember they had this dumb thing where because she drowned before, or she was about to drown when the guy was teaching her how to swim, and she saw baby Jason.
Mm.
So that was just in her head, a vision. But still, it threw me off guard. But it's
They
like when I
didn't
thought, about like,
even
oh, okay,
respect, yeah, but they didn't even respect the design for young Jason in it. The kid looks like a normal kid,
yeah.
really. When she sees him, it's not even mongoloid Jason, you know. So what is that?
I'm not sure we're allowed to use that anymore.
Sorry, sorry.
But
It's
actually,
it's not
it's
deformed Jason. Sorry,
yeah.
you know.
Right, right, right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but it's weird because actually I realized there are multiple Jason designs, young Jason, where he looks normal, and then under the water he has the deformity, and then
Yes.
it's inconsistent, which is kind of weird. It's like, why are you spending money to make multiple looking Jasons? But
Yeah.
yeah, the
Yeah.
movie is just a
If he
slog.
was deformed, he would be deformed from birth. So why even bother, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. All right, and then we had two terrible, terrible, terrible Jason movies. So I'll put it like this, right? Jason Goes to Hell, the final Friday. I'm just gonna quote one line from this. This one line is gonna sum up exactly what's wrong with the show. I'll try to say the way how Homeboy say it, right? In a Voorhees he was born. True Voorhees may he be reborn, and only by the hands of a Voorhees will he die. That's all I have to say about Jason Goes to Hell, the final Friday. Excluding the end, which was kind of cool, and oh, okay, yeah, you're tied it to Freddy now, okay. Other than that, what I just said is the reason why this movie is terrible, right? And so, Jason X, all I'll say, which came out in 2001, all I'll say is the cryogenic death that happens. That's like the only memorable thing. That's like the best thing that happened in that movie. Everything else, forgettable, bland, nothingness, right? I know you guys probably agree with those two sequels, right? Yes or no?
Okay, so yes, Jason Goes to Hell is like the least memorable. You definitely realize these people are completely out of ideas at this point in time. Um, it is the thing. It's so stupid. It's one of like when we have those bad movie lines. I
Yeah.
could watch this and just laugh at how dumb it is with friends. The whole thing where the guy eats Jason's heart and gets possessed by Jason, and
I was like, what is
it's
this?
yeah, it's just ridiculous. And it also ties into where even with Nightmare on Elm Street, they had that thing too where they were like, okay, so Freddy has a daughter, or Freddy has a son, or what, not giving it away for anybody who hasn't seen it. And they kept trying to do this thing. Well, they have relatives. Like, why is it so important that they be related to anybody? And they did it with Michael Myers too. He had a niece and all kind of stupidity like that. So yeah, the only redeeming Jason Gossell has two things I like. The opening, where the whole thing where the I think it's like the FBI or whoever sets him up to take him
They
down.
went
I
full
actually,
RoboCop on him.
yeah,
Mhm.
If you remember the RoboCop
I
scene, if
actually
you remember the
like,
scene in RoboCop where, sorry to cut it, if you remember that scene
yeah,
from RoboCop where it was just this full on assault on him, yeah, they
yes,
do that to Jason. My jaw dropped and I say like, and I'm
yes.
about to throw a
I
miss. It
actually
was a
like that
missile
because
aimed at
you
him.
don't you don't expect it. So I actually like that because it comes out of nowhere. You think you're watching your typical Jason stalks somebody moment, and then they turns into this she's this badass agent and that kind of thing. So that opening is pretty strong. The rest is nonsense, and of course the ending gives us Freddy versus Jason.
Yeah, but to
Jason
me though,
X,
just in retrospect, right?
yeah,
Like the scene works because we know that 10 years later we got Freddy vs. Jesus, right? But I imagine even back then, and look at the length of time between then. You know what I mean? It's like you're just really, really, really trying to keep this franchise alive, just so now you want to expand to this slasher cinematic universe now. Like really, bro?
well,
It was even
to
so
be
far that they would
fair,
even tie in Evil Dead, which is one of my
yeah,
favorite
well,
movies of
to
all
be
time.
fair,
Franchise, sorry.
to them, Aliens did Predator did it too with Aliens, yeah.
Yeah, Predator
So
Mhm.
did that. Mhm.
yeah, so to be fair, I know it's fans wanted this for decades. They wanted that clash, and for them to, especially they put that there because maybe they were trying to force their studios to come together and get it done, But again, it's always the studios are always about money, 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 money. So Freddy versus Jason should have happened at least a decade prior to when it happened. But let's just be glad it did.
Yeah,
And
agreed.
Jason X, I actually had a lot of fun with that movie. It's one of those movies where at that point in time, like Scream, everybody knows everything there is to know about Friday the 13th. And I like that the movie is very self-aware. It does not take itself that seriously. I like Uber Jason, this kind of Terminator version of Jason. He
Yeah,
had some fun kills in there, like when he cryogenically freezes the girl face. And I like his fight with the black guy. And he's like, if you think that's going to stop me, and then Jason hits him again. He's like, okay, that'll do it. And he dropped. I liked how self aware it was because at that point in time, it's 2001. And you're watching these movies now for the sake of just junk food entertainment, as Julian put it.
right.
So yeah, I think Jason X, I think it's a better movie than people give it credit for. I think it's well shot and it's self-aware enough that I know it maybe if it took itself seriously, it would have felt completely flat for me, but it didn't, and I enjoyed that.
Right, cool.
Yeah, just say quickly, Jason goes to, I mean, yeah, why you turn it from a stalker series to a body jumping, whatever. It's like, this is not what I could pay my money for. I'm sorry, worst of the franchise. Jason X,
Yes,
I agree. I like it. I like it's fun. I like we have two actresses from that sci-fi series, Andromeda, in it.
yes,
Which kind
yes,
of
Yes, yes.
yes.
cool. Yeah, and it's very self-referential. You have that scene with the holograms, and the holograms are like, "Do you want to have premarital sex and drugs?" So yeah,
Yeah.
they're kind of winking a lot at the franchise. So it's a really stupid, fun movie. So I like Jason X for what it is.
Right. I think for me it's just I zero in too much on the stupidity of it. That's why I didn't really enjoy it all that much too. But just quickly with Freddy versus Jason, what I felt with this one where it shines is is Freddy Krueger, right?
Oh,
And
a quick
because
one. We have David Cronenberg is in Jason X, so we have to
that's
remember
true.
that.
Yes. The great David Cronenberg, right?
So,
But yeah,
yeah,
with
he must have liked it.
yeah. Yeah, but with Freddy vs. Jason, what I like to is the same gross out stuff that made Jason Goes to Hell so insufferable to sit through, at least in my case. To me, it was the franchise trying to be like what the Freddy Krueger series was, where it's just usually these gross out moments, you know what I mean? These really weird, bizarre imagery and all that kind of stuff. And it's just mainly the reason why I will prefer that franchise over the Friday 13 ones. Sorry, guys, but I prefer the Freddy ones, even though, yes, I know some of the
No,
sequels
it's
suck, right?
okay. I actually have a lot of friends that they prefer Nightmare on Elm Street to. I mean, and I give huge props to Nightmare on Elm Street too. I mean, it's more fantastical, as Julian said. It definitely is a lot more fun to watch, so to
Yeah,
speak.
yeah, you're
Yeah,
right. So for me though, just the dream logic of everything, the world where literally anything you could see anything. Like case in point, the first one where you see the lead character, she's in the hallway of her high school and she just seeing this corpse in a body bag being drug out. You know what I mean? Just like
yeah,
this weird imagery. You know what I mean? It's almost like they will watch a lot of like 70s Japanese horror films and just incorporate that into these movies. Like you just get these genuinely like weird stuff now. And that's what they nail perfectly with Freddy vs. Jason, whilst giving us the slasher goodness that we expect from it. And for me, this was a guilty pleasure, true and true. I forgot how much I enjoyed it. Just seeing the two of them face off was just badass. The fight itself is so incredibly badass, though. It's almost like you are watching a video game. And yeah, yes, these characters have been incorporated in some way, shape, or form into video games, but that's another story for another day, right? But yeah, though, it really lived up to the goodness. The side characters are just the victims. Kelly Rowland, you know what I mean? Just the moment with her, that was hilarious as well. I love the self-awareness of it as well too. And yeah, this thing is just a overall blast. I really really rate this show mainly because hey, my boy Freddy Krueger in it, and he just get to be the badass that he always is in my eyes. Julian, Summer, what do you guys think about Freddy vs. Jason?
Yeah, I had a great time with Freddy vs. Jason. It's so much fun. I agree with you. It's more of a nightmare movie that is a Friday 13 movie.
Yeah,
While I mean, Jason gets a few good kills, but it's Freddy's show. Freddy
yeah,
steals the scene, and oh my gosh, and the two face off, the one in the dream one and the one in the real world, so well done. I love the heck out of this movie. So much fun.
yeah. And one thing though, before we get to you, Summer, right?
yeah,
What I love is what they actually nail about Jason as a whole. It's obvious that he's just the muscle. You know what I mean? He's just the brawn. So that's why Freddy, being the brains, quote unquote, would just basically hire this man to just to run around and kill people. That's all. I love that. You know what I mean? I love the idea that yeah, it's not trying to make Jason into well, he's this tortured soul, even though they kind of had a little flashback with the Camp Crystal Lake and when he drowned initially. But still, in the end of the day, he's just this hulking mass of, badassery there. There's nothing more to him. So you understand why a character like Freddy Krueger would be like, yeah, your job is just to kill people and make them aware that, I'm still around and, you can start being scared, you know what I mean? I love that. But yeah, Summer, what's your take on Freddy vs. Jason?
I love it. I remember it's one of those things where you remember going to the movies and you remember how much you enjoyed it, how much fun the crowd had with it, because it was definitely, you had to be a fan of these two franchises to want to see this movie. And we had waited so long, and it definitely paid off. Even the weaker stuff that doesn't work, you forget about it, because these two, this everything else is so fun and so well done. Most of the characters are actually enjoyable to watch. As much
Yeah,
as they're not really fleshed out characters, there's some solid acting there.
I'd agree.
The young guy who his brother was killed by Freddy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that he actually gives his best. He gives his all with that. The kills are fun, and yes, you guys are right. Julian nailed it. It is definitely more of a nightmare film than a Friday film. But
Yeah,
what I do like is that to me, they give equal respect to both, because
that's right.
you have that battle where Freddy is kicking the crap out of Jason in the nightmare realm. But then when it comes to pulling Freddy into the real world, Jason hands him his ass. So
Yes,
I I
yes.
do I do love that they give both groups of fans that equal respect, because sometimes you don't see that. You see where it's kind of like when you're reading a comic book, who would win between a fight between Superman and Batman? The answer
Mm-hmm.
is whoever writing the comic says wins.
Yeah, you're right.
Whereas here, I felt like they give equal credit on both sides, because even that ending shot where, yes, Jason gets the kill, but Freddy isn't dead.
Mm-hmm.
So it's cool like that, and I had a blast with it. I think it's a perfect cap on both franchises.
Right, right, right. So yes, folks, we've talked quite a lot about the franchise as a whole, but yeah, you know what I mean. There's just so much in this franchise to just dig into, and just moments and stuff that we liked, stuff that we didn't like. So essentially, it is about the franchise, right? But as promised, we're gonna talk about the first one. So let's not waste any time. Let's jump into it. So just names that you mentioned before. So yes, Tom Savini was involved in this. He handled the special makeup effects. I'll talk about that in a bit. Also, I forgot to mention the music, right, which is done by Harry Manfredini. You know what I mean? Who pretty much stuck around with the franchise up until its end, basically, with Jason Goes to Hell. And by the way, I hate hate the score that he did for Jason Goes to Hell. It was just so cookie cutter, so basic, just so drab, right? But just the stuff that he did, with this film here and the later ones, I dug. You know what I mean? With the violin, with the string assisted music. Even though, yes, I can admit, yes, it's clearly inspired by Bernard Herrmann stuff from Psycho, and yes, the movie is
The
very
movie
much
is
inspired by Psycho. Like,
definitely
it's always
inspired
there.
by Psycho. Definitely. I was going to bring that up as well as we started talking about it. And I'm glad you saw that as well. It's heavily inspired by Psycho.
Exactly. And it's directed by Sean S. Cunningham, who, from that point, continued to like produce the films in the series there. Because other directors came in to work on the franchise, but really Sean is the one who kind of started all, right?
Hmm.
So the story begins on a moonlit night on Camp Crystal Lake in 1958. I would say though, like as far as Halloween, right? I mean, John Carpenter's film, it does use a similar technique where you have the killer's POV, right? So you're seeing this person just moving around this particular cabin, looking at people sleeping and all that kind of stuff. A trope comes into play where you have the two counselors who sneak out and they go to make out and whatnot, right? And then the killer follows them, and of course we get the iconic. Even though I'll admit early on in my viewing, this is years before, right? Because it became part of pop culture. I always thought it was,
Yeah,
yeah,
I did too, but it is Kiki Mama. It's supposed to be Jason calling to his mother kind of thing.
yeah. I will touch on that too. You're
Yeah.
right, but it
It
okay.
does
When I
sound
get
like,
that point, yeah.
but it's iconic.
It is,
It's like
it
the
is.
Jaws theme. You hear it and you instantly know what it is we're talking about.
Body
So
gong
Yeah.
down.
Yeah, and it's quite an effective sound effect. I would not lie. You hear that, and it's like, oh, okay, something gonna happen.
yeah,
And well, so said, so done. Something does happen. The guy gets stabbed at first, but what I like in the film here is that 'cause when he realizes somebody's watching him, he's like,
We weren't doing anything. We were just messing
before he even says around, he gets stabbed. So right there, you know that okay, it's somebody of high authority that caught them in the act. You know what I mean? And then the girl is just kind of like running around the place. She doesn't really have anywhere to go. She just keep running into corners, and then they just go into full slow mo, and then they have the freeze frame on the face. And like just thinking about like what Ebert and Roper, sorry, oops, Ebert and Siskel said, it's kind of on the exploitative side of things, but it's a quite effective scene. I'll give them that, right? So I can imagine some old fart would be like, oh, so you get pleasure of killing, teenage girls, but no, that's not the point of that scene. But the scene is quite effective though in terms of okay, who is this person? Who's killing off these teens here, right? Right, and then we cut now to June 13th, 1980, right? And we're introduced to Annie, right? And the funny thing is, because I haven't seen the show in quite a while, I honestly thought that Annie was going to be the protagonist in the show, when in actuality, it's not, right? Which is quite clever, right? She seems eager to head down to Camp Crystal Lake because we learn later on is that she was hired to be a cook there, right? So it's basically the preparations that they're doing before the campers themselves come to stay for the summer, right?
yeah.
So she goes into this diner. She asks how to, she asks for directions. Everybody stops, kind of watch, kind of weird, like what you're talking about. And then this guy Enos decides, hey, I'm gonna, just drive you there. You know what I mean? In a truck, right? And on their way now to the truck, we get Ralph, boy, the crazy old cook. You know what I mean? And he's like,
Crazy Ralph.
Every
yeah,
town has one.
yeah. And he's like,
You'll never come back again.
and I noticed like in the second and third ones, there's always like these old guys who just always warn them, oh, there's something dark and spooky. You know what I mean? That kind of thing. Even to the point that he even ends his the scene by saying,
It's got a death curse.
I thought that was just so campy and weird and offbeat, but yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, and you know, it was kind of funny too. Well, while Enos is driving her down to Camp Crystal Lake, you know, he's talking about
Camp Crystal Lake is jinxed.
Oh, terrific. Not you too. You sound like your crazy friend back there, Ralph.
Well, maybe. Did Christy tell you about the 2 kids murdered in 58? Huh? Boy drowning in 57? A bunch of fires? Nobody knows who did any of them. In 1962, they was going to open up. The water was bad.
the mere fact that Enos drops Annie off by the corner of the town cemetery was just so ironic. Yeah, he just drops her by the corner. It's like, yeah, this is as far as I could go. So, yeah, bye. I mean, that was kind of funny. But yeah, now cutting to the camp now, we meet, on the way to the camp now, we meet Marcy, Ned, and Jack, played by poor old Kevin Bacon.
Hey, this is where he gets his start. We have to give respect.
I know.
We all gotta start somewhere.
No, but you'll understand why I say poor old Kevin Bacon, right? But when he arrived, though, we meet the real protagonist of the show, and that would be Alice, right? Played by Adrian King.
Yes.
If I get the name
Yes,
right, yeah.
Adrian King, yeah.
Yeah. Who I would like to find out. Like, I know she starred in other films, but I don't know. I just think that she's just she's Alice in Friday 13. No more, no less, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. We also introduced to Steve Christie. He's the one who basically is running the camp now. And apparently, you know, it's kind of like this family thing, basically, because yes, the Christies were running the camp even back in the late 50s, right? We also introduced to Bill. He'll show back up later. Ned, we learn, is the clown in the whole story. Yeah, he just cracks all these dumb attempts at humor. There's one scene actually where he fakes his own drowning, and I had to roll my eyes at that. I was like, bro, really? You know what I mean? But back to Annie now. So Annie ends up hitching a ride with this driver, right? We don't see who the driver is. We just see a Jeep. She jumps inside, and the driver passes the sign, you know what I mean, onto the road where Camp Crystal Lake is, right? It's like, you know what I mean? Like, you just passed the, you know what I mean? You just passed the road. What's going on? And driver keeps speeding, right? She catches wind of what's going on. She jumps out. She falls on her knee, and she just more or less, you know, with a bum knee, ends up running into the woods, and the driver gives chase. And ironically, the driver catches up to her and slits her throat, right? And then right there you see, you know, Savini's work, because yeah, they do the whole prosthetic neck thing, right? Where yes, you see the slit neck, you see the blood, but you know it's a prosthetic, right?
But and as you mentioned, Annie, they kind of did a little psycho there, where you kind of set up like, well, okay, well, this is the protagonist, and then
Yes.
you were okay,
Yes.
and gets killed is like, what the hell? I thought
Yeah,
you
Yes,
that
that's
threw
out,
me
you
off
know?
too.
Yes.
Yeah, even though I saw
Yes.
it before, but I was like, oh yeah, right, she's not the protagonist. Wow, okay. But it's how they set it up though. So I'll give credit. That was really a smart narrative move, right? So yeah, so meanwhile, the remaining staff at Camp Crystal Lake, you know what I mean, just having their fun. A couple motorbike shows up. He's looking for Ralph. Because you know, he just kind of tells them, you know, when he gets drunk, you know what I mean, he just walks around the place and just does, you know what I mean, it's kind of unpredictable what he does, right? But the chief calls him back and is like, all right, cool. And then he leaves, right? And then what I like too, where Alice goes into the kitchen and she's just like packing away, you know, wares and stuff like that. And she opens the door to, I think it's a cabinet or whatever it is, where they have the canned goods, and Ralph is there, right? And then he just goes back spouting, you know, the whole apocalyptic stuff. So he's like,
This place is cursed. Cursed.
and I like when he leaves the cabin and he's like,
You're all doomed.
man is jumping his bike and just ride off just so for no reason. And I honestly thought that he was gonna get killed, you know what I mean? But he doesn't actually. He actually survives. Like that's the last time we see Ralph. I was like, okay, all
And
right.
then he gets him.
Until part 2 when they kill him.
Yeah.
Oh yes. He shows up in
Shows
two.
up in
Right,
part
right,
2.
right.
Yeah.
Yes,
I
yes,
think
yes.
Jason gets tired of him trying to warn people away from the camp.
Yeah,
Stop,
yeah.
stop murder blocking, sucker.
You know? Right. So late in the evening now, Ned notices someone going inside one of the cabins, right? So Ned goes in, while Marcy and Jake by the lake, you know what I mean, making out and all that kind of stuff. And then afterwards they notice, oh, rain's coming, so let's go inside and, continue it as we do it, right? And while while things getting hot and heavy now, unbeknownst to them now, Ned is on the top bunk of the bed that they're at with his throat slit. I thought that was like a nice reveal now because we're wondering if Ned was walking on them or whatnot, right?
Yeah.
Um, Meanwhile, the other three counselors, well, outside of Steve, because I think Steve stepped out for something, right? They play a little game of strip Monopoly because
That's
boredom,
what
right?
people do.
Yeah,
That's something
that's what
to
people
take.
do.
Yeah.
That's something people do.
Yeah. Right. So back to the Lovebirds, right? And right after they do their thing, Marcy leaves Jake now to go to use the bathroom, right? Jake now pulls out his post-sex blunt, and what I mean, all of a sudden a drop of blood hits his forehead, right? And then we get the best kill scene in the movie, in my honest opinion.
Yep.
Hand goes over his forehead, and then we just see this blade, this spike blade, just through Jake's neck, and you get shut up like the blood being
What I
spilling
love
out.
in that shot is that it's an arrow and they turn it. I think
Yes,
that's what finishes it off perfectly. Is
yeah,
that how they turn it? So it's always been one of those shots. It's held up so well. It
it
still
does,
looks
it does, it
good.
does.
Yeah,
Oh, and
I call it a throwtectomy he got.
yeah. Now, but it's quite a very impressive scene, though. Although you could kind of see the prosthetic, because yeah, if you look closely, my boy neck white though, like weirdly white, like powdery white for some reason. I'm like, oh, that's the fake neck. But other than that, though, it's probably the most memorable scene in the movie. It's equal, in my opinion, to like Johnny Depp's death scene in the first Nightmare on Elm Street. I love that death
Mm.
scene, by the way. Yeah, but
Yeah.
and yeah, you know what I mean. That's why I say poor old Kevin Bacon, because like the man came to have some fun and
And
arrow to the neck, bro.
listen, he came and then he went. Okay, it
Yes, he
works.
did. Like
He
literally,
did.
he literally came
And
and went.
as we're talking about it, I mean, how much strength do you need to push that thing through somebody's neck? I mean, zombie Jason could do it, but not the killer in this movie.
Yes,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
That don't make no sense. But
It looks
yeah,
good, but you can't really think about it too much.
don't think too hard. No.
Right, right. I do like how the film itself um expands the time before Marcy meets her demise now. So she's in the bathroom and they're like, oh well, okay, how is the killer gonna get at her? She hears a noise, and it's just how they pace that scene. Though I will give credit where credit is due. The pacing for this, I would say, between deaths, in terms of like building tension, was great. You know what I mean? I was impressed by that. So yeah, you know what I mean. In the bathroom, Marcy eventually gets killed by an axe to the head. God damn, boy! I was like, jeez, boy. You know what I mean? That
Yeah.
was that was quite graphic, though. I would not lie. And you know, we just going back to like what guys like Ebert and Siskel were criticizing the shows on. Yeah, I'd imagine that scene alone probably ran them up a wall like that, and the two other kills we got in the movie. Hell, all the kills actually, I felt probably they got pissed off at, right? But yeah, that scene was pretty good. Back to the Monopoly game. One of the girls, I think. Oh, right, Brenda, that's her name, right? Yes, because I had to remember names. I didn't want it to be, nameless victim number one, nameless victim number two, right? But yes, they have names, they have personalities, guys, right? So yeah, she
They're
leaves now.
people.
Yeah, they're people, they're people. They
People.
bleed
We
just
have
like
to
People
us.
itch.
acknowledge that.
Yeah, they bleed just like us, you know what I mean? But yeah, she leaves though because of the best excuse ever. She left the windows to her cabin open, while rain was pouring down. It's like, all right, cool, I have to leave, right? And then we see what happened to Steve. So he's at the same diner from the beginning. sipping on some coffee. And I like where basically the owner was telling him, Warren's falling, best you stay behind. It's like, no, I need to check up on, the other counselors, you know what I mean? And then, he jumps in his Jeep and leaves, right? And I'm there like, you really could have stayed, You really could have stayed. Um, so meanwhile, now Brenda is in the bathroom now. She's brushing her teeth. You could see the killer clearly hiding behind a shower curtain. And once again, with tension, you know what I mean? Just building tension. You're thinking that she's going to meet her demise in the bathroom. It's like, no, she actually goes back to she actually goes to her cabin and then she hears this female voice go, help me, right? And she goes out with her raincoat and her flashlight. She's going deep into the forest, just deep in the woods, sorry, you know what I mean? Just following this scream. This person screaming, help me, right? And payoff wise, I love the payoff for this, right? Where basically she reaches the same spot where we saw earlier on they were setting up this archery range. And I like how, the lights come on and, she wants to know what's going on. And, they just kind of leave it at that particular point, right? But then they cut back to Steve and, he gets some car trouble. Cop actually picks him up and drops him back at Camp Crystal Lake, right? Okay, so while all this is going on, Bill and Alice, who are still, still at the cabin, apparently Alice heard, Brenda screaming, so she wants to know what's going on, right? So let's go to the other cabins, and no one's there, right? And they want to know what's going on. But it's kind of weird though, like when they return, right? Alice decides that she's just going to sleep, while Bill goes out to investigate what's going on, because somebody shuts off the generator to the actual camp itself. So he goes to investigate, and she decides, you know what? My friends are missing, but I'm tired. I'm bush. I just need to go and sleep. Yes, so yeah, just wake up when all this done. I thought that was really weird though. But after that though, the cop basically drops Steve back at the camp, and then we get the dumbest death scene in the movie. And to be fair to Steve, I could understand where he was getting at, because as he reaches, he notices somebody flashing a flashlight, and the person stand up near to the Camp Crystal Lake signer. But then he just walks close. He's like,
oh, hi. What are you doing out in this mess?
And he just keeps walking closer and closer until he gets stabbed. I was kind of odd though, is that as he gets stabbed, the scene cuts to, a wide shot of the actual camp and the lake itself. Thought that was kind of weird, right?
But I think, he recognizes the killer,
Yeah.
The way
Oh
he
yes,
treats
you're right.
patients,
You're right. Yeah.
Yeah, he does recognize them. So he says, "Hey, what you doing out here?" Yeah.
Oh, okay. No, I just really
I
figured it was
saw the way,
just
but
him being inquisitive now. I thought it was like that. Okay. I didn't pick up on the fact that he knew the person.
Yeah,
Okay.
at the end of the day, when you think about it, he would know who as you said, that family had been running the lake, the camp for like whatever decades or whatever. So he would have known who she was, and he would have responded, and hesitation in a situation like that would get you killed. So
Right. Exactly. Yeah, so while Bill checks up on the generator, he realizes that, oh, okay, somebody turned it off. It was like the gas ran out, sorry. Alice wakes up like she was just had a nightmare. She's like, Bill! And then she decides, hey, let me actually go out and look for Bill, right? So she finds her way to the same archery range area, and we get a nice reveal here where we see Bill's throat slit, an arrow through his neck, and an arrow through his eye, which pretty much stuck him to the actual door that he's attached to. I'm like, God damn, John, okay? Wow, you know what I mean?
Talk about overkill.
Yeah, talk about overkill though. And then, Alice returns to her cabin now. She's doing everything she can to block the door and whatnot. And she's looking around, and then she says, what am I gonna do? And then in true another Friday 13 trope I've noticed, characters being thrown through windows.
What is it with Jason and throwing bodies through windows?
yes,
What is it?
definitely.
Right.
He hates windows. He does not like windows.
Somebody either jumps
It
through
seems
a window,
lot of
like
work
in the
for
like
no effort.
yeah, like somebody either jumps through a window, like I think it's either a new beginning or the final chapter, or somebody dead body being thrown through a window, something like that, right? But in this case, it's a body being thrown into the cabin itself. And it's Brenda, right? Yeah, Brenda's, pretty much cut up and whatnot, right? So, yeah, she's dead, right? So, instant scream, Alice is bawling her heart out. And then she spots Steve's Jeep, right? Coming driving into the area. And then somebody comes out. And then we see, actually, we're now introduced to Mrs. Voorhees, played by the late, great Betsy Palmer.
Betsy Palmer, yes.
Mhm.
Yeah. And she introduces herself, what I mean? I'm Mrs. Voorhees. I'm an old friend of the Christies, you know what I mean? So that's a nice little clue as to who she is, right?
Yeah.
And I won't lie though, like from first glance though, she like real convincing. Like you're thinking, okay, she just there. She probably heard some kind of noise. She want to know what's going on. Alice is losing her shit, and then she's saying, you know what I mean? They're all my friends are dead, and all that kind of stuff. And when she reacts to seeing Brenda's body, it's quite convincing. I wouldn't lie though. But then she just slowly starts to lose her shit. You talk about,
Oh, God, this place. Steve should never have opened this place again. There's been too much trouble here. Did you know that a young boy drowned the year before those two others were killed? The counselors weren't paying any attention. They were making love while that young boy drowned.
and from there it's like, okay, something is wrong here. And then she drops the line.
His name was Jason.
And
Yeah.
I imagine I would have loved to be one of the people who saw this film for the first time, not knowing the franchise that it spawned and, the sequels where Jason literally came back, you know what I mean? Because I would have been like, okay, well, it's a revenge thing, all right, Jason died, okay, cool. Now I get it. But because we know about Jason Voorhees as a character, it's like, oh, this is where it all started. This adds a whole new context to what's going on, you know what I mean?
Yeah, and I would say something about the reveal. I think it works and it doesn't work. I think one, it works where, as you're saying, this. I mean, at this time, nobody expecting this old lady to be a killer in a movie.
Yeah.
That's
This
right.
Is something,
Yeah.
This is something you never see ever. Yeah, I mean, even up to now, it's something
Yeah.
you would rarely ever see. But two, so the reveal. I'm imagining watching this movie, not knowing who the killer is, and you'll be like, "What is like the little old lady the killer? What?"
Yeah,
So
like
that great twist.
and
But
I would
Yeah.
admit, like
yeah.
even when she shows up, like you're thinking back, okay, is this person capable enough to run somebody in the woods and slit their throat, or
Well,
kill
that's the
somebody of
thing.
that degree?
Yeah, so
You
it
can't, if you look
makes-
back on it, it makes everything fall apart. But
Mm.
honestly, back then you're looking at that and it's like Julian said, the reveal is so mind blowing because you would never suspect, even if they had her there from the beginning as a character. Let's say they had her saying she's a camp cook or something. You would not expect it to be her. You really wouldn't, and that's why it works so well. That's why in Scream, it's the first question that's asked: who's the killer in Friday the 13th? If you answer wrong,
Yeah,
and
yeah, I love that more about
Yeah.
Drew
that.
Barrymore answers wrong. So, and the funny thing is, I remember watching Scream. I remember being in the audience, and I remember people shouting out Jason, and it was so funny. It's like afterwards, it's like because the horror fans were like laughing because no, you would have been dead too because you got it wrong.
No.
So,
Yeah,
yeah,
but why I say it doesn't work, where I think because you go into the whole movie and then you kind of throw this character at the end of the movie and the big reveal. So I thought, I mean, if they just had like one or two scenes before where they met her in town or she was
Right,
yeah,
right.
there,
I
it's like
agree.
yeah.
okay, but you kind of just
Agreed.
drop all this at the end. It's like
Agreed.
come
I
on,
think it,
you
it
know?
could have been a lot better structured in terms of her reveal and everything. I do feel like it would have worked better if she was there from the beginning. And I mean, honestly, I don't think because of the fact that she is an old lady, you would have. It's not like you would have spoiled anything. Nobody would have guessed that is who was doing everything anyway. So yeah, it would have been. It would have put the icing on the cake for this movie if they had done it that way.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right, you're right. And I love the fact that she mentions that today, as in June 13th, was Jason's birthday. So it's like, okay, now I see why she's there, right? And then she actually delivers one of my favorite lines in the movie.
What you did to him. Look what you did to him.
Just basically looking at Alice and blaming her.
It's
blaming
so
her
funny
for
to me
Jason's
that
death.
it's so funny to me that Betsy Palmer just did not want to do this movie. She's been on record as calling it a piece of shit and stuff like that.
Wow.
And yet this is what everybody remembers her for. I don't know any other. I know she was I think she was an actress of the stage. And
Mhm.
I don't really know anything else she was in. I know Siskel was pissed that she did the movie as well. So
Oh,
he
so
was
she was
probably,
familiar with her work.
yeah,
Oh,
he
okay.
was familiar. He actually wanted, he printed her address in a magazine so that fans could write to her and tell her how disappointed they were in her and stuff. He printed the wrong address, so it worked
Yeah.
out. Um,
Oh,
but
come
yeah,
on, Siskel, boy.
she
No.
said
Well.
she,
Back then, just sorry to cut, but back then,
yeah,
when it came to slasher films, like Cisco was real vehement against them. Like case in
yeah.
point, Silent Night, Deadly Night, right? Which, yeah,
I actually
believe it
like
or
that
not,
movie.
me too, me too. The
Yeah.
sequel is hilarious, right? But back then, parents were in uproar over this movie, because like you're taking Santa Claus, icon of Christmas that kids love, and turn him into a killer. And I
Yes.
remember the review that he had, Siskel and Ebert. Siskel hated the movie so much, he was saying he just called out producers. He called out everybody who worked on the film and saying, "Yo, all y'all should be ashamed of all this stuff." To call everybody out outside of actors and your director, dread. Call up producers, executive producers, like, nah, boy, real dread, you know what I mean? But yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
he hated that movie. So yeah. Siskel, when it came to the movies, like, nah, these people should be punished. They should be ashamed for what they did. You know what I mean? To cinema. Right. So once we understand that Mrs. Voorhees is going crazy, Alice ends up getting this fireplace poker, beats her with it, runs out. I like the reveal where she rushes. Well, I mean it's understandable. She rushes to Steve's jeep, and then you see Annie, Annie's body with her throat slit there in the passenger seat. I'm like, what? Okay.
Yeah,
Like, why
yeah,
would you drive around with the body? And something that I know, I imagine a lot of people don't really think about, but it just adds to how crazy, maybe not in a logical way, but how crazy Mrs. Voorhees is now to drive
yeah.
around with your victim's body. They're like, what? You know what I mean? But yeah, so we just get this pretty much this elongated chase scene. Ever so often they would stop, they would fight each other. And then in the process, and this is a moment that I really love though, where in true psycho fashion, Mrs. Voorhees starts speaking for Jason.
Kill her, Mommy. Kill her. Kill her.
Yes, the old killer, mommy, kill her. And that's where the come into play. I was like, oh,
Yes, yes.
that's
Kill,
where it's
kill, kill.
from.
Yeah.
I got it. And props it's, as far as editing goes, I love how it just kept cutting back to that dope but still kind of creepy looking shot of the lake and Jason as a boy drowning. There's something about that shot in particular, especially when you do the close up. I don't
Yeah.
know what it is, but it just looks incredibly creepy though. Something about it, but it's really, really a fantastic shot though. Right. So there's even one scene where Alice runs into the kitchen, right, and she's hiding. And there's a part literally where Mrs. Voorhees grabs the machete and starts chopping down. Well, she actually makes a hole in the door to the scene cabinet area where the canned goods are. And I was there watching. It's like, wait, no, this is the shining. No. And the moment she opens the door, I was like, kind of expecting it to say, "Here's Johnny."
You
You
say,
know, but
here's mommy.
His
yeah,
mommy.
and it's funny that both movies came out the same year, right? Well, The Shining came out a couple of months, I believe. No, not actually. Actually, I think it's a month or so before this movie came out, if I'm not mistaken. A month or two, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, just the comparison between the two was kind of interesting in my opinion, right? So yeah, one thing leads to the next. She gets knocked out in the process. Um, I like how they incorporate the machete for the first time. Well, sorry, not for the first time, because earlier on, I believe Bill was using machete to cut down some overgrown bush or whatever it is, and then he's called to one of the cabins to kill a snake. I remember the man like chopped the snake head off. Like, bro, what? What kind of cruelty to animals? You cruelty to animals, right? But yeah, I do like that you at least you got to see Voorhees, Mrs. Voorhees use the machete. You know what I mean? So that's kind of like a okay, well, this could be a trend going forward. So yeah, so one thing we see next, and Alice ends up by the lake. She stops for some reason. I know in true, as we could kind of watch it as popcorn entertainment, it's one of those moments where it's like, once again, why are you doing this? There's somebody out there trying to kill you. Like, okay, your friends are dead. You knocked out Mrs. Voorhees. So why are you there, like, trying to figure out what to do when there's a canoe right there? Jump on the canoe. Get away. Don't just stop
panic,
and
not thinking things through. So.
yeah, don't just stop and be like, is she not even thinking about what to do? She just stops, really. Literally, like she is waiting for Mrs. Voorhees to show up. And so said, so done. She shows up, and the machete's involved, so there's a scuffle, the machete's thrown, they fight and whatnot. And then right afterwards, well, Alice does the best thing in the movie. She grabs the machete and in super slow motion, she just, decapitates Mrs. Voorhees. And I actually like that shot though. That's props to Tom Savini for that. That was just like a sweet kill, though. You know what I mean? Some genuinely sweet kills in this movie, but that one in particular was like, yeah, I like that, right?
Yeah, because you see the head chopped and then you see the head fall off. They don't cut anything.
Yes, that's true. That's true. Right. So so afterwards now, Alice now decide to jump on the canoe, and then we just cut to dawn basically, right? So the police now show up. Two policemen come out. One of them actually notices the canoe.
Let's say it first of all. This
Uh-huh.
is one of the best endings ever in a horror movie.
It is. It is. It is.
Because
It's
it
totally.
completely puts you at ease and you think everything's done.
Yeah,
Tell them what
right.
happens,
And then the moment happens, right? Which I'm gonna get into in a sec, right? Yeah, I like Harry's, song for this. Like it's just so peaceful and serene. Like
Yes.
it's like the morning after. You know what I mean? The terror is done. It kind of reminds me of like
Yes.
the music that they use in George A. Romero's Dawn of the Dead. That synth music.
Yeah.
It has a synth, vibe to it.
Yes.
So it's
Yes.
just like, all right, she's on the canoe, she's just there. It's like, okay, it's done, right? And I would compare this, well, well, for me, and I guess for you too, Summer, yes, it's a reference to Carrie, right? Because yes, Carrie's end scene, I never forget the first time I saw that, I jumped. I was terrified as hell when I saw that.
Yeah. Well, I
And,
saw this before that. So
oh,
this
okay.
ending,
I saw Carrie
this
before this.
right, this ending definitely it did what it was supposed to do. I was relaxed. I was not expecting anything else, and it was one of those things where if you were watching that at night and you were getting ready for bed, and it hits you, the amount of adrenaline that surged through my little body, I could
Yeah.
not go to sleep. It's like it was
That
awesome.
Yeah, like in my case, like when I saw Carrie, that was like around 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning. And yeah, when that ending hit, I just did not go back to sleep. I
You
was so
didn't go
terrified.
back to sleep.
Yeah. And here's the thing, like this is how incredible and effective the scene is, right? I Even when you know what's gonna happen next, I was just there watching it, waiting, and then I
Yeah.
just felt chills go up my spine because I know what's gonna happen, and then it happened. And yeah, I felt it. I felt chills all over my body. This is a genuinely frightening scene, in my opinion. And this
Yep.
would be where this freakish version of young Jason jumps up and grabs Alice and pulls her down into the lake. I don't know. It's something about that. The music they use, the actor who plays young Jason,
Yeah.
the moss or whatever it is that's on his skin, just everything about that sequence. And then, of course, the slow motion. When I see that, just instant chills. I can watch that right now. That's that clip on YouTube, and I will still get frightened. It is, you're right, it is one of the best endings, or I should say climaxes to a horror film, period, right?
Yeah.
Why I say climax is because we get like this epilogue now where Alice is at the hospital and well she asks I like that the police come and tell her, if folks coming to pick you up, and then she asks,
The boy. Is he dead too?
Who?
The boy, Jason.
Jason?
In the lake, the one who attacked me, the one who pulled me underneath the water.
Ma'am, we didn't find any boy.
And then we get one of the best, I should say, closing lines of a horror film.
Then he's still there.
Then he's still there,
He's
yeah.
still out
And
there.
that's it.
He's
That's
still out
all we
there,
need
yeah.
to know.
And she
And the
just
movie,
freaks
yeah,
out.
yeah, and then the movie ends with the same calm, serene music that we got before Jason's sudden attack. And yeah, that's pretty much Friday 13 in a nutshell. So just last thoughts and rating on this though. What was kind of interesting looking at it, I didn't know, right? Actually having watching the full anthology for this, right? Is the stuff that critics accuse it for, you know what I mean, the excess sex and nudity and stuff like that. It's not really there, no. You know what I mean? Like there's just one sex scene, but
No,
it's
not in the
done.
first one.
Yeah. I would say though, yes, graphic violence, violence wise, yes, it's quite graphic for its time, right? You know what I mean? A lot of slit throats and just inventive ways to kill people. So yeah, Tom Savini did his thing on this, right? But yeah, I mean, as far as this one here, I have to respect the film for what it is, right? Like, even though you could kind of look at all the other films and be like, wow, the evolution of this series though was really interesting. But I mean, wow, right? I have to give credit where credit is due. This thing did its thing. Sorry, this movie did its thing. It wasn't like a retread of Halloween. You could tell that the writers, directors, everybody wanted to do something totally different. And just the idea of a camp just being the setting for this makes it even more terrifying. Being out there in the woods where you're supposed to be with your friends having fun, and there's this threat out there, this person that you don't even know who it is, stalking and killing your friends. Or that's a recipe for a great horror story right there. You know what I mean? Acting wise, everybody did what they're supposed to do. I mean, I know we have this tendency of saying, well, they're victims, so we shouldn't care. But still, I think everybody came through, did their thing. You kind of cared about them to an extent. So when they died, it was even more shocking. Even though you might look at it now and laugh at times, but still, I kind of cared, for some of these characters. So when they die, it's just like, wow, you know what I mean? Like I'm kind of cringing. I'm not laughing as such like I would have with the subsequent films, right?
Yeah.
In terms of pacing, in terms of building tension, this is where this film shines though, in terms of just how it builds tension, just the way that we don't know who the killer is, and yet we're at the edge of our seat wondering who it is. You know what I mean? The music I thought was fantastic. It was haunting. It was spooky. It fit the tone of the film perfectly. And then, of course, well, that payoff at the end was excellent, right? And this last thing I want to say, though, it's kind of funny looking at it now that, yes, it's Jason's mother, but still, she, with the amount of kills involved, yeah, I could see her being, classified as one of the greatest horror movie villains ever, you know what I mean, in my opinion. Even though with the years now, it's like, oh, well, it's Jason Voorhees, and you kind of forget, no, well, his mom kind of started all, you know what I mean? So, yeah, she should get credit. She should be up there with, you know, with the Michael Myers and Norman Bates. She's right up there, you know what I mean? As far as realistic horror villains go, you know what I mean? But yeah, I mean, I know Jason's the icon, and the series will become the way it is because of him. But Mrs. Voorhees did her thing, man. So props to Betsy Palmer for doing her thing. And for me, like I say, I respect it. It's a part of horror movie culture. It's a cinema, sorry. It's part of cinema. It's part of cinema history. So you can't, be like, say what you want about it. You could call it trash. I know critics ripped it apart back back when it came out, but I think the movie is still so much a part of our culture, and it just inspired so much of horror filmmakers from that point on. You know what I mean? You have to give credit where credit is due. So for me, rating wise, I'm feeling a decent 4 to 5, man. I think this is, yeah, easily the best Friday 13 movie in the anthology. And I know it's not really saying much because it's the movie that started all, but for what it did, and just the sensation that came out of it. Yeah, you know what I mean? You have to give credit where credit is due, man. So for me, decent 4 to 5. I think it still should be regarded as a classic as far as horror movies go. As far as as far as the genre of horror go. Julian, last words and rating on Friday 13.
Yeah. I mean, I think you said most of what I would have said. Yeah. I love the whole murder mystery setup of it. I think it still resonates up to this day. It inspired so many people. I mean, so many movies you could watch and you see, yeah, people just kind of going back to it. I mean, and yeah, while Jason is the who really took the franchise, off, and that people really remember. I do think Mrs. Voorhees is a more interesting villain, and I think in terms of quality of film, it may not be the most fun film, or it's not my favorite of the franchise, but it's the best crafted of the entire franchise. So
Right.
yeah, if I'm going out of 10, I'll give it about a 7 out of 10.
All right. Okay. Cool. Cool. Summer, last words and rating on Friday 13th. I had to save the best for last, so yes, Summer, take it away.
Well, like you guys know, he's my favorite. He is still my favorite slasher icon. And yeah, everything you guys said, all I would add to that is that for me, this movie, one of the things, Adrienne King, I don't think she gets enough props. She's definitely a horror scream queen in her own right,
She
even
is.
though she does not get to do as much as me. I would have loved to see that character continue for at least the first three films. I think it would have been good to watch her grow and give her that arc. But
Yeah, but oh no, they
overall,
just had to kill her off in part two because, you know.
yeah, the pacing, the tension, and the ending that caps off that ending for me is just, it epitomizes what I love about horror. Just a movie that you feel like everything is over and done with and calm, and it's like, no, it's never that perfect. And so many other horror movies have copied that ending. Where it doesn't always work for those movies, it works for this one. And while it is not my favorite, it started the ball rolling.
Mhm.
And I will always be grateful to Sean S. Cunningham for it and for everybody else involved. It introduced me personally to Tom Savini because I had not seen Dawn of the Dead as yet when I saw this.
Right.
And I would give this film a 7 out of 10 as well.
Okay. Okay. All right. So with all that being said, Julian, where can we find you online, good sir?
You can find me on my site, redmangoreviews.com. I'm there. Summer's there as well, too, doing a lot of horror stuff. Facebook, find me at Movieville. And I am on Instagram as well at Redmanwriter.
All right. Summer, where can we find you online?
YouTube, you can find me at Movie Junkie for Life, and you can find me on Facebook at Movie Junkie Continued. And like Julian says, I have the honor of writing for Red Mango Reviews, and
Yes.
I
Yes.
handle most of his horror stuff for him. So that's
Yeah.
always fun.
Yeah. And y'all keep it up, though. I mean, just these quick bites that you've been doing over the past month, Julian. Like that's kind of
That's awesome.
that was kind of inspiring for me, though. In terms of just putting out content, trying to be as consistent as I possibly can, man. So yeah, man, keep doing your thing, Julian. In my case, yeah. I mean, I have to show respect, man. In my case, though, you can find me on Twitter, Bear Beat Bailey, on Instagram, Bears Beats and Bailey. On Instagram, just look for my name, Matthew Bailey, along with a Legally Black blog official fan base where you find a link to this podcast, as well as Bears Beats and Bailey, which I've done, I keep doing with Ricardo Medina. Shout out to Ricardo. And of course, the episodes of Retrospect Reviews that we've done thus far. And I mean, it was just fun, just recapping, or in your case, recapping. In my case, just being introduced to the Friday 13th series here. I don't know if we're ever going to get another film in this franchise. I
I
could have
hope
sworn that
so.
we were supposed to get one last year or year before. I could be wrong, but I
Yeah.
don't know if we will.
No, what is happening, guys? Like you mentioned with the video game, what is happening is there's a fight between New Line Cinema and the creators of the characters, and there's a lot of tugging and pulling. I don't think we'll get anything new for quite a while until this is settled. So unfortunately, us the fans, we're the ones suffering for it, but they can't seem to agree on what they want to do with the character and who is going to get the bigger chunk of the pie. So
Oh,
sadly, all we could really do is at least we have these fun movies to look back on.
yeah. And I know its fan base is, diehard and will be devoted until they die, you know what I mean? But yeah, 40 years has passed since the release of this movie, man. And I hope that, it will continue to inspire, what I mean, not just fans of horror, but just fans of cinema, just those who just want to be entertained for, an hour and 35 minutes, man. So yeah, happy 40th anniversary to Friday 13, man, and
yes.
hope that
Happy 40th, Jason.
Yes. Happy 40th, Jason Voorhees and Mrs. Voorhees, and yeah, let's see how its influence will continue. You know what I mean, for the years to come. So yeah, that's pretty much about it. So once again, guys, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night, whenever this is. This was Matthew Bailey and
Julien Neaves
and
Sommerleigh Pollonais.
And we are signing off from another episode of Retrospect Reviews. So until the next one, take care, stay safe out there, and don't forget, take care, guys. Peace.
Okay, bye, guys.